Welcome everyone, I'm John Gress, and in this video, I'm gonna take you on an adventure with me as I do 5 different shoots with the new Elinchrom FIVE. The Elinchrom FIVE is a 500 watt-second battery-powered monolight. It's capable of TTL, high-speed sync, and it has a bicolor LED modeling lamp. The battery is capable of delivering about 450 full power flashes, and when you run out of power, you simply plug it in to any USB-C power source like a power bank or the included charger, and you can keep right on shooting. With this active charging, it will charge up while you're shooting and you'll never lose momentum during the shoot. In this video, I'm gonna test out these lights on location and in my studio. I'm gonna get into some situations where I thought that I was gonna lose a light and another situation where I thought I was gonna lose a lens or two. So it should be a lot of fun. Also, I'm gonna use all sorts of different modifiers. I'm gonna be using TTL, high-speed sync, and their mobile app. Then at the end of the video, I'm gonna give my general impressions about the lights and talk about how I'm gonna use them going forward. So you're definitely gonna wanna stick around for that. So let's go ahead and start with our very first setup. So I've wanted to photograph triathletes running out of the water at sunrise for the longest time, and I finally got to do it during this project. So I woke up well before sunrise and I headed to the shore of Lake Michigan. Thankfully, this is fresh water, which will make sense in just a minute. I paired an Elinchrom FIVE with an Elinchrom 100 centimeter or 39 inch Rotolux Deep Octabox. This is one of my favorite modifiers in the entire line. In fact, if I could only own one modifier that Elinchrom makes, this would be the one, because it's great for full body, it's great for headshots, it's pretty much a general all-around great softbox, and I think it was the very first one that I owned long before I started shooting Elinchrom. So the Elinchrom FIVE is capable of shooting at 1/8,000th of a second with high-speed sync. During this shoot, I'm going to shoot at 1/5,000th of a second at f2. Now you might need to go up to 1/8,000th of a second during midday or maybe to shoot wide open, but 1/5,000th of a second is going to be plenty fast, as you'll see here in just a second, to stop every droplet of water that's flying through the air. All right, so it's about 6 in the morning. I'm gonna take you on a bit of an adventure in this video. I'm gonna shoot 2 triathletes running out of the water at sunrise, which is something that I've always wanted to do. I've just never had the chance. So we're gonna do that today. When you're shooting outside, the first thing you want to think about is what f-stop do I want to use to get the depth of field that I'm looking for. Then you're going to pick your shutter speed and ISO combination so that the sky is exposed correctly. And then you want to add in your flash and just turn the power up until your subjects look correct. Okay, let's hope it doesn't fall. So you'll run like from there to here. Good. Tired yet? All right, so I'm just working to try to get him in the right spot with the sun behind him and the light coming in at the right angle. It's a little tough. I keep changing the ISO as the sun gets higher, and now it's got to a great spot in the clouds. So let's get it. So just come through. All right, action. Yep, that was a bad idea. Okay, let's quit while we're ahead. All right, so I think it's pretty good. I got a little too much water here on the camera. The sun's above the clouds, so we're gonna have to stop and call it a day. All right, so I think I got all of the water out of the light stand and the camera's dry enough now, but I'm still gonna stick it in a bag of rice. The light let me shoot the entire time between 1/8,000th of a second and 1/4,000th of a second in high-speed sync, and it worked out great. And now we're gonna head to our next adventure. Not only is the battery-powered Elinchrom FIVE great on location, it's also right at home indoors. So let's head to the studio and keep shooting. So during this shoot, I'm gonna capture 3 dancers and I'm gonna freeze them in mid-air with the Elinchrom FIVEs. Now there are 2 ways that you can freeze movement. One is that you can use high-speed sync, or you can use traditional flash and flash duration to capture and freeze the movement. So let me go over both of those. So when you're using high-speed sync, that means you're using a shutter speed that's higher than your camera's sync speed. So for my Canon R5, that's 1/200th of a second. And when you flip over to high-speed sync, you cause your flash or your flashes that are capable of high-speed sync to take all of the light that they're able to produce and then divide it up into a bunch of little pulses, and the light pulsates while you're taking the picture. And none of the pulses are as bright as one big pulse that you would get if you were using traditional flash and a shutter speed that was at your sync speed or below. So again, for me, that's 1/200th of a second or slower. Now let me talk about flash duration. So if this is brightness and this is time, light comes out of that flash tube very quickly and it trails off. And that period of time is known as the flash duration. So if you can imagine for a moment that you're in a total blacked out studio with no windows or anything and no lights on above, and that you're taking a picture, and then the only thing contributing to that exposure is that pulse of light. So the flash duration is what's going to determine how frozen your image is. So if you have a very long flash duration, that's like having a very long or slow shutter speed. And if you have a very short flash duration, then that's like having a very quick shutter speed. So I found previously that if you want to freeze dancers jumping through the air, you want a flash duration a little bit higher than a 3,000th of a second. That's a T.1 flash duration. And T.1 just means that it's 90% of that light coming out. And you'll see T.5 sometimes too, and that's 50%. But you want a T.1 of about a 3,000th of a second. And you also want to overpower the ambient light in the room by about 3 stops. So the reason or the way that you would find the flash duration for your flash most of the time is you would look in the manual. And it would say something like, shortest flash duration is at minimum power, and that's T.1 1/8,000th of a second. But what if you need to shoot at 1/8 power or 1/16th power instead of 1/128th power or whatever it is? You wouldn't really know the flash duration. You just sort of would have to guess like, oh, maybe it's this or maybe it's that. So that doesn't necessarily help. The other thing is you could get a really expensive fancy light meter that measures flash duration, and I don't have one of those, but that would help. And the third way is probably the best way, or my favorite way, and that is on the back of the Elinchrom lights, there in the lower left-hand corner, it shows the flash duration in real time as you change the power setting on the light. So for the FIVEs, when you dial them down around power setting 3.3 and below, you start to get into that range where your flash duration will be around a 3,000th of a second. And anything 3,000th of a second or faster is going to result in frozen dancers, including all the way to their toes and their fingertips, because these are usually the parts of our body that's furthest away and they're moving the fastest. So now if you want to figure out how do you get to be 3 stops over the ambient? Well, the reason or the way that you would do that is you could use a light meter. I took out my light meter and I metered the ambient light from this movie light, and it metered at 1.4, which is a 5-stop difference between the main light and the ambient light. So I know that the only thing contributing to my exposure is the flash. Now, I could prove it to you, and this is what you would actually do if you don't have a light meter. And that is that you would just take a picture with the flash and then turn the trigger off, and with the same exact camera settings, take another picture. And if that picture is blank or essentially blank, then the only thing really contributing to your exposure and stopping your movement is the flash duration. So that's what I'm going to use today on set to capture these dancers in midair, and every one of my pictures is going to be sharp and perfectly frozen. All right, so when I'm shooting for black and white, like I am today, I like to use a very high contrast light source. So for my main light, I'm using the Elinchrom 150 centimeter or 59 inch indirect Rotolux Octabox, and I've taken the outer layer and inner layer of diffusion off. This will create almost like a beauty dish, but a very large one. So essentially, instead of using it more as a softbox, it's now really like a very large silver shiny reflector. So this should give me a large, broad light source, but it should be fairly crispy and contrasty in its character. The other thing is, if you take the diffusion off of your main light, it's going to be cooler relative to your other softboxes that have diffusion material on them. So that's why you want to take that off, so you end up with the same color balance if you're shooting color. All right, so in order to get the same contrasty look that I'm getting from my main light, I've taken the diffusion off and out of these small strip softboxes. Now, you can see that the bulb is directly exposed to the models, and I don't want that. So I'm gonna use their deflector discs. These come in opaque, white, gold, and silver, I believe. I'm using the, I can never keep this straight if this is white or opaque, but I think it lets light through, but not too much. And this is gonna make it so that the spread of light will be more even top to bottom, and we won't get really like a hot center. And that's just gonna go right here in the umbrella hole. And the reason I've got these two softboxes stacked on top of each other is that I want to create a head-to-toe highlight so that we have even light edging them out here on camera right. If I only used one of these, I would probably only get a highlight from, let's say, maybe their ear to their waist. This is going to give it to me from head to toe. So because Skylar's hair is lighter, it didn't blend into the background. But once I got Rosario on set, I noticed that there wasn't any separation between his dark hair and the dark colored lit background. So I'm gonna add a hair light, and I'm gonna use this Elinchrom 70 centimeter deep octobox. I've taken the diffusion out, and I'm gonna put the deflector disc inside of here, and that way I'll get the same quality or character of light as I'm getting from the other modifiers. So in this shoot today, we're going to be pairing brightly colored clothing with brightly colored backgrounds. This is a little bit of a play on a series of images that I saw a few weeks ago. I'm also going to be using TTL during today's shoot, and these lights have TTL with manual lock. And that means that once you make an exposure in TTL, if you press manual, that carries over the power settings for each light from the TTL exposure to the manual exposure. That way, you're locked in. So if it looks great on that first exposure, you're in good shape. The settings will stay there the entire time during the shoot. If you need to, once they carry over and you go into manual, you can go in there group by group and change the power setting of each light so that you get the exact look that you're going for. So my lighting plan today is to use this Elinchrom Rotolex 150 centimeter or 59 inch indirect softbox. And indirect just means that the light inside points away from the subject and it makes a really nice even light source. And I'm gonna boom that over the set, coming right down from the front in that so-called beauty dish position, if you will, a little bit above them, directly in front. Then I'm gonna light the background on each side with a 41 inch or 105 centimeter deep white umbrella. And my hope is that some colored light will reflect off of the backdrop and create some kickers on the sides of their neck and the sides of their faces in order to more marry them to the backdrop and create more of a cohesive, colorful image. All right, so we're just working through the poses. We ended up starting off with TTL and switching over into manual and refining things so we could get the background to be the exact tone that we needed or wanted to have on camera. We are getting some nice kickback off of there as well and getting a little bit of that color in there to create some edge lights on some, but not all of the backgrounds. And I think overall, all the colors are coming really well together from what Richard, the stylist, is putting together, and of course, what Jonathan and Matthew are doing on camera. All right, so I'm trying to feather the background lights just right so that some of the light comes off the umbrella and directly strikes him on the side of the neck. And I'm just metering it to make sure that it's about 2.8, which is 2 stops darker than the light hitting his face from the main light here. I might need to turn it up a little bit, but I just want to check out some test frames and make sure that I've got that highlighting going on the side of his arm and the side of his neck on each side. All right, so I took a few test frames. I didn't see that highlighting there, so I turned the light up a stop. And now my background is a little brighter, but I think I'm getting that edge highlighting that I was looking for. All right, so I just angled the lights a little bit more, and that way when I was metering it here on my nose, I ended up with an exposure of 2.8 and 7/10. I'm shooting at 5.6, so that's a 1 1/3 stop difference between the main light and the light coming off these two umbrellas. And then as I metered it here on the background, it's metering at f4 and 4/10, so that's 6/10 of a stop darker than the main light. That relationship is going to get me a few like edge highlights here, a little highlight on his arm and that sort of thing. And then his face is going to be lit perfectly with this main light, the 150 centimeter or 59-inch indirect Rotolux softbox. All right, so I love the way the photos turned out today. When I was doing the crimson backdrop, I really didn't get any kickback of light off of the backdrop. And because of that, I didn't have any separation between them and the background. Separation is just when you get a bit of a highlight, in this case a kicker going up their arm and the side of their jaw, and that separates them from the background and sort of makes the shot look more three-dimensional and more dynamic. So that's something that you might always want to look out for. But because I wasn't getting any kickback off of the backdrop, I just rotated these umbrellas a few degrees, and I stood back there and sort of looked and imagined that I was the light bouncing off of the umbrella, and if I could see the person, then I knew that that light was going to spill onto them and give me that separation that I was looking for. Now that we're done with this look, let's head back on location and keep shooting with the battery-powered Elinchrom FIVE. All right, so I'm just unloading the car before our next shoot, which we're going to be shooting here at the Illinois Railway Museum. And I'm going to be photographing a vintage steam locomotive with 3 models in 1940s clothing. So we're going to get that great period feel. I've always been a big fan of the photographer O. Winston Link, who photographed trains at night with large format cameras on black and white film with multiple flash bulbs. I'm sure you've seen his work. So this is sort of going to be an homage to him, sort of mixed in with a little bit of old Hollywood charm and a smoke machine. So it should be a great experience, and I'm going to try to use 5 of the 5s to do this shoot tonight. All right, so this is my friend Richard Payton. If you can ever find a stylist BFF to work with, definitely do it. We've been working together for a long time, and I know he's going to bring it today. And of course, someone to help you drag your stuff across the grass. All right, so on the shoot, I'm going to use 5 5s and 5 hard reflectors, including this 28-inch or 70 centimeter beauty dish. And this is going to be our main light, and it's going to be boomed out there over the set. And then I'm going to light the models with a kicker on each side. And then I'm also going to light up the train with 2 lights sort of coming from behind over here on the left-hand side of the train. All right, so this is going to be the kicker on camera right. And I'm not sure if this is the exact spot, but I think it's going to be about right. I don't think the stand will be in the shot, and I think the models will be at just the right angle. So all of O. Winston Link's shots were with bare bulbs. So because of that, I'm going to use all hard lights, so it'll sort of look similar. It is about 6:30. We've got an hour and a half to execute this, pack up and go, but we should start shooting around dusk and then into twilight and a little bit of night. So one of the great things about the FIVE is that it can talk over Bluetooth to the Elinchrom app in your phone, and you're able to come in here and change the settings of the lights right here on the phone. And you can turn it up and down. You can also turn the modeling light off if you'd like to. You can see back here the modeling light just came on. That light is in group 3. The other thing I'm using today is the Sekonic L478 DRU-EL light meter, and it talks directly with the Elinchrom Skyport system. And one of the great things is that you can put your lights in different groups, and then right here, that light is in group 3. I can tell it to look at group 3, and then I can go ahead and tell it to fire. and I can meter it. It says it's at F2 and F2.0. I want it to be 2.0 and 3/10, so I'm just gonna press this power button down here 3 times, and that's gonna get me directly up there where I need it to be. I'll meter again, and it's 2.0 and 3/10. So one of the great things about this app is that you can rename each light something specific. So I'm gonna rename this one back here Coal Car, and that's just so that I know that the light is pointed at the car with the coal in it. I know that's not the technical name. I used to be a train nerd and I forgot, so just know that's the case. But I'll be able to easily control the brightness of that light in the app pretty easily just by selecting the correct group or the correct light here and changing it right on my phone. So I've got the beauty dish boomed out here, and the reason is because I'm going to use a wide angle lens and I want to get it to as close to them and the train as possible without being in the shot. And sort of where you're looking from right now is where I'm going to be in just a second with the camera. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Perfect. Beautiful. I love this. So I really love the way that all that hard light was coming together and we were able to capture that film noir scene. The styling was perfect. The models were on point. The other thing is that the kickers were at half power and the other lights were turned down a little bit below that. And that meant, because of the great recycle time with the 5, that I was able to keep shooting rather rapidly whenever I saw the smoke come up there, and a great picture on the screen. And I absolutely loved how the shots looked during that scene. So I can't wait to go on to our next look. All right, so in this shoot today, I'm gonna be working with the Elinchrom FIVE and the Rotalex Go 24-inch softbox. I'm gonna be shooting our model, Sana, who'll be posed on the front of this sailboat with the Chicago skyline behind her and the sun setting behind it. It should look fantastic. And my friend David's gonna be helping me out today by holding on to this puppy right here, so hopefully it won't end up in the water.
Yeah, so if you end up in the water, hold on to whatever floats.
And I can't swim, so. Perfect, love it. No matter what I did during the shoot today, the 5 was always ready. The recycling time just kept on going, and I love the fact that the light was able to keep up with me as I kept shooting more and more frames as the sun was going down and the light was changing, and it really kept up. Now, when we got into twilight, the great thing was I was able to keep shooting using just the modeling light. In fact, David was in there close with the Rotalex Go, and then by the very end of the night, we were shooting on the dock, and I was holding a second 5 in my hand with the modeling light dimmed down and using it for fill, while David was in there close with the Rotalex Go and his 5 as the main light. So during the course of these 5 shoots, I shot 1,540 photos, and I almost did it on only 5 batteries, which says a lot about these lights. I switched over to Elinchrom in 2019 because I loved using their modifiers, and also I love the fact that the flash tube was more exposed in their monolights than other manufacturers. Some manufacturers enclose the flash tube inside the body of the monolight, which then only lets it make a very narrow beam, which seemed to me in some tests that I did to not fully fill a large modifier or properly fill a beauty dish, because light from a beauty dish sort of needs to bounce around in different directions and then come forward. whereas all that light was just coming forward and not bouncing off the sides. And that seemed to make really flat, less flattering light. So I love that thing about the Elinchrom lights. I have probably taken thousands and thousands of photos, and I've traveled all over everywhere, and the lights have never let me down. I know going forward that I'm probably going to pair 3 Elinchrom FIVEs with 3 Elinchrom 1s, the 131 watt-second battery powered compact monolight that they came out with last year. At least I'll be pairing those 6 lights together most of the time when I go on location and in studio, and I think it's going to work out great. I think they're the perfect companion for each other. I'll use the 1s for my hair lights and accent lights, and I'll use the 5s in really large modifiers or when I'm using high-speed sync outdoors. One thing that I was surprised with when I started using the 5s in my studio was just how convenient they were. The very first time that I needed to move from one side of the set to the other with my light, I love the fact that I didn't have to plug in, and I love the fact that my studio is going to look a lot neater, and it's going to be far less likely that I'm going to trip or that my client's going to trip on a cable. If you guys have any questions or comments, just leave those below. And as always, stay safe, have a great day, and I'll talk to you soon.